Are you needing to create a more advanced submission form on your WordPress website? Maybe you're a coach or consultant or, something else, and you need a simple way to be able to ask your customers or prospects questions before you actually go and book the call with them, to make sure that they're qualified to actually take the call. Or maybe you're just needing something more sophisticated than just a simple contact form. Hi, I'm Kyle Johnson from escapingthenorm.com, and in today's video, I'm going to be walking you through step by step how to create an advanced multi-step form with things like select boxes, check boxes, radio buttons, file uploads, and more. And you can also build a ton of different things with these more advanced forms, from consultation forms to job applications. The sky's really the limit. But the best part is, you might be thinking this is complicated, but it's actually not. It's very, very simple. There's no coding whatsoever. Now, you can use custom code to make further customizations, but it's definitely not necessary because this form builder is extremely powerful and it has all the customizations that you really need. I'll be using the Elementor Form Builder in this tutorial to build these more advanced multi-step forms, and this isn't available in the free version of Elementor, so you'll have to have the paid version of Elementor to actually use this feature. And I'll also be using Getresponse to integrate with the form so that you can send the email once you've collected it. I'm going to set it to where you can send the email and the name to the email list software Getresponse, but you can make it send whatever data you want. But don't worry, being both of these paid products, they are not expensive at all. They're actually really, really cheap, and especially for the amount of sheer power that you'll get out of these two different tools. If you don't yet have these products, Elementor Pro or Getresponse, and you want to get them, go ahead and click the links down below in the description of this video. They are affiliate links, so I'll get a small commission off of each sale. However, it's not going to be at any additional charge to you. It'll be the same price, but it helps me to come out with these videos for free, so in doing that you'll be supporting this channel. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be building today. Okay, so I have a page here and I've loaded this into an Elementor canvas page, so basically that means it's a blank page, and I use this template from the Astra starter templates to load in here. So if we scroll down, this is just a basic consultation template, but if we scroll down we'll see the form right here, and this is the multi-step form. As you can see, there's 3 different steps, and there's also a next button. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this out and show you what it does. And I'm gonna click next. Now this is the second step of the form. And as you can see, there's a previous button that showed up. So if we do previous, we'll go back to the first page of the form. And as you can see, it retains all the information that's been filled out. So I'm going to click next again. And as you can see, it still retains everything. And now this number 2 is highlighted. So it tells us that, step 1's complete because it's solid green. And then step 2, this is green, but this isn't. And so this is all filled out. So I'm going to click next. And see, still you can go previous if you want, and you can also go all the way back to the beginning. I'm going to go back through, and as you can see, we're on the final step now, upload. And so I put a little thing here. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but just for demonstration purposes, upload resume. So I can choose a file, and I'll just choose one of these photos, like this photo here, and click open. So you could have whoever's filling this out, like upload a resume or a picture or whatever it may be. And then date available for call, so this is our date input, so you can just click this and select the date. And then time available for call, you can click this and select the time. And then there's this acknowledge checkbox, so you can check that. And then I'm going to click send, and that's going to submit the form. And I've also set this to where it redirects to my website, and as you can see, it redirected. Now the other 2 things that it did is it sent a submission of all the information that I filled out in the form to the Elementor submission back office. So if you come over here and hover over Elementor and then go to submissions, you'll see that there's a submission, and this is the email that I just put in. And I'm going to click on that email, and you'll see all the different information that I filled out, all the check boxes, all the inputs, etc. The other thing that this form did was send an email to my email, and so as you can see, all the information that we filled out, it's in this email that it sent to me. And then finally, over here at Getresponse, if we get a list, this is the list that I selected, was test list. And as you can see, that email and the name showed up in Getresponse. So the form did 3 different things, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do all that. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm at my WordPress dashboard, and the first thing I want to do is go to the page that I want to put the form on. Now for this example, I've created a page and it's called multi-form. So I'm going to right click on edit with Elementor, open link in new tab so that I don't lose my dashboard. Okay, and if I scroll down, you'll see the form down here, and so it's right here. So I'm going to just go ahead and exit out of it so we can start from scratch. And so as you can see, I put these headers right here, and so wherever you want to create the form, you just hit the plus on whatever section you want to do it above, and then hit the plus again. I'm going to do a 3 section as normal to make it easy to resize the form. And then I'm going to come over here, hit all apps, and then I'm going to search for form, and then I'm going to click and drag form into the middle one, and then I'm going to resize. And as you can see, this is just a regular old contact form. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to start with step 1. And so basically I'll just be doing, all of these inputs right here first, and then we'll move on to step 2 and then step 3. So the first thing is I'm going to delete this message thing because we don't need it. And on the first one, which is name, I'm going to just click on this, and where it says label, I'm going to click on that and delete. And then I'm going to put first name because I want it to be more descriptive, because we're going to have first name, middle initial, and then last name, and they're all going to be side by side. And so the next input, I'm going to actually change this one to the middle initial, and so it'll be still a text input just like the other one, because this first name is a text input. And then for the label, I'm going to just put m.i. for middle initial, and also I'm going to delete the placeholder on this one as well. That's going to get rid of the text inside of here. And so we're going to also make this first name required, so I'm going to hit required, and then also the middle initial is going to be required, and that's already checked, but we can't tell that it's required, so I'm going to scroll down over here, and then I'm going to check required mark right here, and that's going to give us this little asterisk to let the user know that it's required. And so the next input is going to be last name, so I'm going to collapse that, click add item, and then the type is going to be text, and then the label, I'm going to put last name like so, and then I'm going to check required. And so now we have our first 3 inputs. Now let's put them side by side. So the first one, first name, I'm going to click this, and then I'm going to come down here to column width, and I'm going to click 40%. And then for the middle initial, because we'll have the first name and last name will be the same width, it'll be 40, 40, that's going to be 80, and we'll be left with 20, and that will be the middle initial, so it'll be like the smaller one. And so I'm going to come down here to middle initial, and I'm going to change the column width to 20. And as you can see, it slid right to the next first name. And then I'm going to collapse the middle initial and click last name. And I'm going to change the column width to 40%. Okay, so now we have our first 3 inputs, and they're side by side like they should be. Okay, and next is the email input. So I'm going to click add item. And the type, I'm going to change this one to email, and basically the whole purpose of changing that to email is it's going to check to make sure that there's an @ symbol in there and someone's not just typing random text into it. So it's just a little check that goes on. And so for the label, I'm going to just put your best email like so, and then I'm going to check required. And the next one's going to be phone number, so I'm going to click add item, and then I'm going to just leave this one as text. Now there is a telephone input, but it only accepts numbers. I want the user to be able to type, like parentheses and stuff like that, so it's just a preference of mine, so I'm going to just leave it to text. And then for label, I'm going to say phone number, and then I'm going to check the required. And the next thing I'm going to put in there is website. So I'm going to click add item, and this will be for, like if you're building like a consultation form, and, the people that would be applying for it would have like a website or something. So what you'll do is go to type, and you'll select URL. And basically it'll make it to where they can enter a URL, and it'll be clickable on the back end. So for this one, on the label, I'm going to just put your website URL, And then I'm not going to do required on this one because it's going to be optional. And then for the placeholder, I'm going to put if none, leave blank, dot, dot, dot. And the next one's going to be a radio button. So it's going to be either one or the other answer. And it's going to be asking, are you a full-time affiliate marketer? So I'm going to click add item. And I'm going to select type. And then I'm going to do radio. And so for the label, I'm going to ask, are you a full-time marketer? Like so. And then I'm going to put required. Now, the way that these radio buttons work, let me just type it in so you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to just type yes. And then I'm going to go to the next line by hitting enter. And then put no. And as you can see, it's a, you can select one or the other, not both. And that's what they call a radio button. And so there's a couple of different options for this. So as you can see, they're stacked on top of each other. So if you want to make them side by side, you can turn this on, the inline list, and that'll make them side by side. I think that looks nicer. So it's, however you prefer it to be. Okay, so now it's time to add the next part to the form, which is the second step. So the way you do this is I'm going to scroll up and you can see all the different inputs that we've put in here so far. So I'm going to click add item. This is basically going to add the next step to the form. So I'm going to click under type. I'm going to click and go all the way down and select step. And basically this is these little numbers up here are going to show up, and you can style these, by the way, but basically it's going to signify that anything past this step, if you put something, like say there, it's not going to show up on this first page of the form. They're going to have to click next, and then it'll show up on the next page of that form. So I'm going to just delete that extra one I just put in here, and then I'm going to click back on the step, and then you can put a label for this step. So for the second step, I'm going to just call this one questions. So I'm going to just put questions, like so. And so as you can see, this one, it says questionnaire, but this first one doesn't have anything. So if you want to actually make this show something like that, just scroll all the way to the top, and since you added a step down here, which is right here, this is the step, it's also automatically going to add this first one right here. This will be step number 1, which is right here. So if you want to add something like questionnaire, like a text underneath that, you just get a label and type whatever you want. I'm going to just put information. And as you can see now, this one's like highlighted in green, and this one's grayed out still. And so right here, you can change the text of the next button. As you can see right now, it says next. So like if we wanted to change that, we could change it to whatever we want. And as you can see, it shows up, but I think next is fine, so I'm gonna just leave it to default. So I'm gonna just delete that. Okay, and so the next input's gonna be what's your occupation. So I'm gonna click add item, and I'm gonna just select text and then label. I'm gonna say what is your occupation, and then I'm gonna just leave the placeholder blank, and then I'm gonna make that required as well. And the next one is a select input, where you can select different options, and this is gonna ask how much they make per month. So I'm gonna come over here and scroll down and click add item. So this one's gonna be a select, right, like that. And so right here on label, I'm gonna put your current monthly income, and then I'm going to make that required. And then the options, so like for each select thing, so if I come back over here and show you exactly what I'm talking about, so each line is going to be each one of these options. So if I come back over here to the editor, each line, so like if I say, like $100 to $9.99, that's going to be the first option when you click that select box. And then when you click enter and go to the next line, whatever you type there will be the second one. And so that's how you want to fill it out, just each item on its own separate line. And then you can make it to where you can select multiple different options, but I'm going to just leave this off. I only want the user to be able to select one option, and so everything else is default. And the next item that I'm going to add, I'm going to click add item. This one's going to be a checkbox, so I'm going to click checkbox. And for the label, I'm going to say what interests you, and so that's going to be this one right here. And so on the options, I'm going to just fill in the options. Each checkbox is going to be each line, like so. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy all of these, because on the next one I'm going to be using all the same things, except for it's going to be where you can only select one. So with the checkbox, you'll be able to select however many you want. You can select all of them, you can select one of them, two of them, three of them, etc. And so I'm going to make this an inline list. That way it looks like this, where it's side by side. So I'm going to check that. and then I'm going to add the next item. Now the difference between checkboxes and radio buttons is the checkboxes you can select, however many you want, but the radio buttons you can only select one of the many choices. So for this one, I'm going to select radio, and then I'm going to put the label. I'm going to put what do you struggle with the most, and then I'm going to make this one required, so I'm going to turn this on. And then for the options, I'm going to just paste in all those options that I had before, because it's going to be all the same thing. And this one's not going to be an inline list because I want it to be stacked like this. And then the next one we're going to add is just going to be another radio, so like the previous one. So this way they can only select one or the other. And I'm going to say, are you willing to invest money? And then I'm going to make this required, so I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to put yes for option 1, and then no for option 2. And I'm going to just leave inline list off so that they're stacked. And that's it for this step. So we're going to add the next step. So I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to collapse that, and then click add item. And then for the type, I'm going to go all the way down and click step. And then for the label on this one, I'm going to just put upload, and I'm going to just leave these previous next buttons alone because I like how they are by default. And I'm going to collapse that. And so for the last step, we'll just need upload resume, the file upload option, and then the date and time, and then the acknowledgement. And then we'll be done initially with the form. Then we'll, proceed to style the form. So I'm going to click add item after this upload step. That's that last step, which is right here. Anything that I put underneath it will be on the third page now. So I'm going to click add item, and then I'm going to get a type, and then I'm going to do file upload. So I'm going to select that one, and then the label, I'm going to just put upload photo, and then I'm going to just make that one required. And then you can select the max file size. So, you can do like 1 megabyte. I'm going to just do 5 megabytes. So it's, whatever you prefer. And then allowed file types. So as you can see down here in the example, you just type in whatever extensions that you want to allow, and then you separate it by a comma. So like, let's say I wanted to allow PDF, so I just put PDF and then comma. And then let's say, PNG, and then I'm going to do the large PNG, and then JPG, and then large JPG, and then JPEG. And so those are all photo extension types. And then I'm gonna just leave multiple files off, but you can turn that on and it'll make it to where you can upload multiple files. But if you do turn this on, you can select the maximum number of files that they can upload, but I'm gonna just leave it off. Then I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna collapse that. And so the next one I'm gonna add is the date and the time for the call. And so I'm gonna click add item. And then this one is going to be the date. So I'm gonna come down here and select date, and then for the label, I'm gonna put date for call, like so, and then the placeholder I'm gonna just leave blank. And then I'm gonna make this required. And there's some other settings you can select right here, but I'm gonna just leave those blank. And then I'm going to click native HTML5, and that's basically going to make it to where it has this little icon that you can click on and actually select the date from this rather than just typing it in. I'm going to do the same thing for the time. So I'm going to come back over here and add another item, and then from the drop down I'm going to select time, and then for the label I'm going to say time for call, and then make this required. And then native HTML5. And then finally the last one, I'm gonna click add item. And then this one's gonna be acceptance, so I'm gonna click that. And then for the label, I'm gonna just put I acknowledge that everything's correct. And I'm also gonna make that one required. And then the text, I'm gonna just leave this blank, and you can make this checked by default. And that's all the fields that we need. Now I'm gonna change the text for the button, like the submit button at the very end. So I'm gonna go over here to buttons, and then where it says submit, it says send. So I'm gonna click that, delete it, and I'm gonna just put book name with an exclamation. And so now that we got all the fields done, I'm gonna just update this, and now we can actually proceed to styling the form. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this column icon right here, and basically this is going to give us the settings for the column that the form is in, and it's going to be this specific column. It's not going to be this one or this one. And so I'm going to go to style, and basically I'm going to give this a dark background, kind of like the example. And so under background type, I'm going to just click classic, and then color, I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to bring the color down to where it's like a almost gray, really dark gray. and I'm happy with that. And so the next thing I want to do is add some padding to the top and to the sides of this form. So I'm going to go to advanced, and where it says padding, now this link is checked. I'm going to leave that checked because I want all the padding to be even around the whole form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click this up arrow, and as you can see, it reset. And now the more I push the up arrow, the higher the numbers go, the more it shrinks inward. And so let's just do 40. That looks good. And so the next thing I want to do is add a border radius around the edges. So like if I collapse this, you'll see that the edges are really sharp, and I want them to be rounded. And so I'm going to expand this back out, and I'm going to come to style. And keep in mind that we're still under the column settings. And so under style, I'm going to scroll down to where it says border, click on this, and then border radius. I'm going to leave all those linked as well. That way all of the border radiuses around each corner will be the same. And so I think I'm going to do maybe like 15. As you can see, they're getting more and more rounded. And 15 looks good. Let me take a second look at that. Okay, that looks good. And so the next thing I want to do is add a simple box shadow. And so I'm going to come down here to box shadow, and I'm going to just click on that. And it already gave me the default box shadow. And as you can see, it's got like a slight, shade around it. So now we need to change the color of the labels to white. I want to change them to white so you can actually see them. So I'm going to click on this pencil icon where the form is to get to the form settings. And I'm going to go to style. And then I'm going to go down to label right here. And you can see text color. I'm going to select this and then select white. And as you can see, now you can finally see all of them. And so that looks good. And by the way, this will be applied to the steps on the next one and the upload steps, so it'll apply to the whole entire form. And so next I want to add a border radius, much like we did with the column. I want to add that to the labels. So what we're going to do is go down to field, click on this, and then where it says border radius, I'm going to just leave it linked and click it up to about 15. And that looks pretty good. And so I also want to change the background of these inputs to like a light blue color. So what we want to do is click background color, click this thing, and then I'm going to slide this slider over to like a bluish color, and then I'm going to give it like kind of a faint bluish tint, kind of like that. And in fact, I don't really like these border radiuses being so rounded, so I'm going to back that off a little bit. Let's do like 5. Okay, that looks great. So now what I want to do is edit the colors and the border radius of the button so that it looks a little nicer and matches it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to buttons. I'm going to click on that. And first I'm going to change the background color. So as you can see, there's 2 different options. There's the next and submit button. And those settings are going to be right here. You can set the background color or the text color. And then you have the previous button. You can select that as well and set those colors. So I'm going to set the next and submit button first, and that's going to be red. So I'm going to click this background color, and I'm going to go up to like a red. I'm going to do like a darker red, kind of like that. And I'm going to leave the text color to white. And so I'm going to come down to the previous button, and I kind of want that to be like a light blue, like so. And then for the typography, I want to change the size of the font. So I'm going to click this, make it a little bit bigger, like so. And I'm going to change the family as well. So I'm going to click the font family. I'm going to search for Cabin Sketch. That's one of my favorite ones. And so it gives it kind of a cool little deal. And also I'm going to do an underline. So I'm going to go to decoration, and then underline. It'll give it a little underline right there. And I also want to change the border radius of these buttons. So I'm going to just change this to like 5. And that looks nice. And so next I want to add a border to the buttons. So I'm going to come up here to border type, and I'm going to just select solid, and then width. Let's just do 3 like so. And we'll just leave it to the default, which is white border, and that looks really nice. So now let me actually fill this form out to see if the previous button looks good, because we haven't been able to see it up to this point. So I'm going to click next, and that looks pretty good. I think it looks pretty solid. And so I'm going to fill this out and take a look at the last one, and as you can see, it looks really nice. And so the only other thing I want to change that I forgot about is I want to put the date and the time side by side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to content, and then I'm going to scroll down to the date, and I'm going to scroll down to column width. I'm going to do a 50% width, and that's going to reset our form, so we'll have to do it again. And then I'm going to come to time, and I'm going to select that to 50% as well. And now our form should be done. And so now I think the only thing left is to put a little bit of padding on the bottom because it's too close to this text right here. But right here it looks fine on the top. So I'm going to just scroll up here, click this middle thing on the section, then click advanced, and I'm going to give it a bottom margin. First of all, I'm going to unlink this so that it only changes one, and then I'm going to give it a bottom margin of, let's say, 50, and see what that looks like. That looks good. So I think I'm happy with all the changes. I think everything looks like it should, and I think we're pretty much done with the form. There's only a few other things that we need to set up, and let me show you how to edit this part right here, the step style. So what you do is just make sure you click form, and then make sure you're on content, scroll all the way down, and you'll see steps settings, so click on that. And there's the type, and you can select between different ones, like you can do none, or you could do like just text. You can do icons, you can also do numbers, a progress bar. Now, since this is a dark background, it doesn't really show up. You have to style it to where it's like a lighter color. And then you have numbers and text, which is the one I had selected. And you also have icons and text. So I like the number and text, so I'm gonna just leave that. And you can change the shape. You can make it a square, rounded, none, but I like circle. Okay, so now all we have left to do with this form is set the actions after submit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to actions after submit, select that. And as you can see right now, the only actions after submit are collect submissions, which that's the thing where, you know, it sends all the information in the form to the Elementor back office under submissions, where you can view each form submission. It's like a database. And the other one is email, so it's actually going to send all the form data that was filled out to an email that you specify. And so I actually want one more, and what I want to do is, like, when someone fills this form out and they put their email in, I want to take their name and their email and send it to my email list so that I can put them on my broadcast list and send them emails in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this little plus icon, and then I'm going to scroll down to Getresponse. I've already integrated Getresponse, and I've already made a video on that, so if you want to watch that, go ahead and click here now. But with that being said, so like when I added Getresponse, this option showed up. So what we want to do is click on this, and so as you can see, this one's continuing to spin. I've got my API key integrated with WordPress, but I think there's a bug somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to custom, and now you have a blank API key field. And so I'm going to come over to my Getresponse account, click the menu, go down to integrations and API, and then click API and copy that API key again, come back over here, and I'm gonna just paste it. Make sure you have custom selected, and then now it actually loads and it says select. So when I click on this, it shows all of the email lists that I've created in Getresponse. So if I come over here to list, you'll see that there's a test list and then KSJ 6808, and if I come back over here, those options are the same, so that just lists out all the different email lists, so you can specify, you know, where this data is going to. So I'm gonna just click test list because I don't have anything in there, and then I'm gonna just put 0 for day of cycle. That's if you have an autoresponder. If you put day 0, then if you're giving like a free ebook away or anything where the autoresponder sends something to the email, it'll send it as soon as the email gets put into the email list. And so the field mapping, so for the email, I'm gonna click this, and I'm going to assign this field, the email field. As you can see, it says your best email, and this one says your best email. I mean, it already knows like which one's the email field, and that's another reason it's important to put email as the type on that one. So I'm going to select that one, and then I also want to put the name in there as well, so I'm going to select this. And as you can see, all of my different inputs that I've, you know, created show up. And so what we want to do is we want to send the first name to the name field that's in the email list. And there's a slew of other options that you can send as well, but they're not required, and I'm going to just leave those. I think the email and the name is good enough. So the next thing to set up is the email. So if you come to email down here, what you want to do is in this field right here, if you have like a Gmail that you want all this data to be sent to, you know, just put your Gmail right here, or whatever kind of email you have, just put it here, and then you can modify the subject. So I'm going to say multi-form submission, like so. And then the message, it just says all fields. So basically all the fields that the user fills out will be sent to that email. And then the from email, I suggest selecting an email that has SMTP authentication. So basically you want to set up your domain email with your hosting provider and then connect WordPress to it in the right way. And both of those videos you can watch. You can click here now for the SMTP video where I show you how to set up the actual email, but just put an authenticated SMTP email in here, and you can set the name. I'm gonna just put Kyle for mine, and then reply to just make it the same email as up here. And everything else, it's also going to send metadata, so I just suggest leave all those in there. And then, I suggest putting HTML as the email type. So I'm going to collapse this email thing. I'm going to come back up here to actions after submit. So the collect submission, that's already set up. There's no options to set. We've set up the email one. We've set up the Getresponse one. I'm going to add one more. So like if you wanted to make it to where someone fills out the form, and then once they're done filling the form out, it also redirects them to a different page. Here's how you do that. You just hit the plus and then go to redirect, and then you'll see redirect show up down here. So you just click on that, and then you just enter the URL that you want the user to be redirected to after they fill the form out. So I'm gonna just put my website in here since I don't have another step that I've built for it, and then I'm gonna just collapse that. And so now everything is done with our form. I'm gonna just fill everything out and overlook it one more time just to make sure, and I suggest you do the same. And then once you're done with that, just click update to make the changes live. And now we're actually going to test the form. We're going to fill it out, and we're going to make sure that we get the email that it sends to my email. We're also going to make sure that the Elementor submission, it actually gets an entry in it in the back office. And then we're also going to make sure that it sends the email and the name to the email list in Getresponse. And we're going to make sure that it also redirects us to the page that we specified. And if it all does that, then it will be good to go. So let's go ahead and view the live version. Alright, so here's the live version. This is the page. So I'm going to scroll down to where our form is, and as you can see, there it is. And first of all, I'm going to check to make sure that the required fields are working. So I'm going to try to click next. It says please fill the form out. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this form out. Okay, now we're complete with step one. So I'm going to click next, and I'm going to fill this stuff out. Okay, now that that's filled out, I'm going to double check the previous button so everything's good there. Click next, and then click next, and then upload photo. I'm going to just choose a random photo, and I'm going to click that, and then I'm going to click the date. I'm going to select a date, and also a time, so I'll just say 8:50 p.m., and then I'm going to just check I acknowledge, and then I'm going to select book me. And we'll see if this form submits. It should redirect us to a new page, which is my website. That's the URL I put in there. Okay, and as you can see, it redirected me to the website. So the first thing I'm going to check is the email. So I'm here in my email account, and as you can see, the multi-form submission showed up. So I'm going to click on that email, make sure all the information's there. And as you can see, all the information's there. And so the next thing I'm going to check is to make sure it showed up in Getresponse. And so I'm going to click on test list. And as you can see, this showed up as well, so we're good so far. And then now I'm in the back office of my WordPress site, and so I'm going to hover over Elementor and then go to submissions, and as you can see, it showed up here. So I'm going to click on the email to get the information, and all the information that I filled out is there. And these say that all the actions were successfully done, and also the upload. Like if you're building a job application and someone uploaded their resume or like a photo or whatever, you can view that right here, like whatever file type it is. Like it'll show up right here, and it'll give you a link to it. You can click that link, and then it will show whatever they uploaded. And so our advanced multi-step form with all kinds of different inputs was absolutely successful. And as you can see, it's not that difficult to build. Like there's a lot of advanced functionality there. However, it's really, really simple, and you can build all kinds of different things, like job applications, prospect lead forms, etc. The sky's the limit. If you got some value from this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up if it was helpful for you. And if you haven't already and you want to see more videos like this where I walk you through step by step, and also new video ideas that I'm going to be coming out with, like where I'll be hacking funnels, like funnels with Elementor, or building membership websites, etc., or things that you suggest, make sure you subscribe so you can see those future videos, and turn on all the bell notifications so you'll get notified when I come out with them. But that's going to do it for this video. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, be sure to leave those below. I love to hear from you. And also have a wonderful day, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers.